This is JORCATION. Welcome to another video on the do's and don'ts for young men dating. Now, I'll say this again. I was on Pop the Balloon episode 2 in the UK. Whether you believe I'm the best person to give you dating advice, this is case by case, of course. I don't generally believe you have to listen to me, but I strongly advise you do and take some expertise from me, from someone that has dated and someone that has gone on dates and someone that I would say I get girls that are maybe interested in me to some form. So guys, what I'd say is to begin with, if you're going to take anybody out on a date, just be prepared to be consistent. Now, consistency is something that people don't understand in dating. I want to start by saying, if you set the bar high, try and retain that bar. That's the whole point. You don't want to introduce somebody to a vibe that you can't sustain. The reality is, I don't want to say it's a game, but the reality is it is some form of a game in some way, shape or form. If you're going to be courting somebody or generally be trying to pursue someone that you like, you have to be willing to take some form of sacrifice. You want to have to be willing to pour into that, in some way. Of course, I'm saying within your means. For somebody that is young, I'm just going to assume you're earning between 20 and 30,000 pounds if you're working full time, which is the standard entry level salary for somebody living or working in London or even anywhere else in the UK. If you're earning between 30 and 40, it will still kind of be relatable for you. But this is just the grand scheme of things. And if you're earning part-time salaries between, let's say, 8 and 12 or between 8 and 15, also just be wary that, of course, exceeding this is not a great idea. So first dates, like I said, I like icebreakers, so if you want to go out on a first date with somebody, I wouldn't set the bar so high. Of course, I was on Pop the Balloon. Somebody next to me was saying he's going to take her to all the bangers and whistles for the first date, of course. And my personal opinion is I didn't agree with that, especially with somebody that you barely know. And of course, if you're going to take somebody on a date, especially if they're someone that you don't really know, and it's not, I wouldn't advise it personally. And I hope that it worked out for him. But of course, I wouldn't advise it because you have to kind of be consistent with that. And if you expect to then do that and then kind of turn the tune down, then it wouldn't make sense. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, you might want to go and check the episode of Pop the Balloon, episode 2. He mentioned he's going to take her to Burgers and Lobsters. I presume one meal was about £60. That's including starters, drinks, per person. And that's fairly standard for that kind of restaurant. So you have to go in there and just expecting to spend a minimum of £120 for the both of you. Of course, some people might offer to pay. I personally wouldn't recommend you asking a girl to pay on a date, but I will say that she needs to tip. I always say, are you willing to tip? If she doesn't tip, then it just shows me something, and that's a little skill, that's a little trick. If you didn't know, ask her to tip. Even if the bill's £250, ask her to tip. Even if it's just £10, if she says no, you don't tip. Ask them to take her to service. Unfortunately, the person you're with doesn't have anything to, you don't have to give them the reason why, but that's just my little incentive. Whether it's worked for me, I'm married today, no, so it probably hasn't worked, but that's what I'm saying. You can obviously be the judge of whether you want to take my dating advice or not. So in terms of relationships and money, why I say also don't set the bar so high and you have to be consistent, because if you did set the bar so high and you couldn't be consistent, then when you're in a relationship, it's just going to be a downward, it's going to be like a trend that's going down, because you can't start high and just bring the flow down. You kind of got to maintain that. And then, if a relationship is healthy, is beneficial, then it's going to increase the spending. And I was saying, of course, both of you can be treating each other however, because it's something that's got to pour into you, you've got to pour into it. It takes two to tango. So, that being said, when it comes to dating, first dates, it should be the real icebreaker. Try and get to know them, do something that's fun if you get the chance, of course. Winter is the best time because you can go winter wonderland or to the cinema or bowling or tennis or something spontaneous. I'd recommend as a first date. Get to know them, see if they got vibe, see if they got speed, and then going from there, of course, you want to, depending on whether you get along on that very first date, if you want to set up a second date or whatever it might be, of course, we're being respectful here. We're not trying to, this is someone you want to spend a long time, like your future with. Of course, this is a serious relationship. This isn't just you know, a one night thing or one day thing. After that, you don't see them, or you want to see them, but it's toxic. What are these situationships? We're not doing that. We're young men here, so this is the space for me to waffle. Listen, guys. So I would say the first date, of course, you've got to have a fun date. Second date, you want to do something that's more planned. You want to plan something where she might be able to dress up. And of course, these kind of dates, you can't just say, oh yeah, let's go to a restaurant. She might not even have a dress. So you've got to give her time to prepare, to even get a dress, get the heels. You've got to plan this. Then most of the time, they look at the restaurant before we even go there. You know the vibe, they know the dress you want to wear. They always end up taking pictures there anyway. You know, these are the things you have to consider when you're planning and picking a date, because, you know, her fit has got to go to the restaurant. Of course, people want to be like, Jordan, like, this is just so unrealistic. Like, how many people are doing this? A lot. You know, you come to London, you see all the restaurants, the thousands of restaurants from the Shard, from all over the place. Yeah, you see the atmosphere. You see you wouldn't want her to wear jeans or something that's out of place and feel out of place. Definitely not. So guys, take time to obviously plan a restaurant. At least on that first date, you can know what she likes to eat. And what she likes to eat. And of course, that will be a good indication of that first date, what she might like. So you can obviously plan something around that. You know, that first date, this fun is the icebreaker, so you can really distinguish what she might like. And then, you know, for instance, if she said Italian, that she liked Italian food, you can work around that. You can look for Italian restaurants. Whether she said she's open-minded and you have to surprise her, she didn't give you much detail because she wasn't willing to tell you on that first date that what she liked, then, but unfortunately, you're going to have to freestyle. You're going to have to pick something out of the blue, maybe ask a friend or go on her socials and see what she might already have done on other dates. If she's been on several other dates, unfortunately, these are the only things you will have for reference. If she's the type of person that dates, then boy, I mean, you can't, if you want to set the tone and that kind of go above and beyond to kind of, you know, after that first initial date, and you know that she's talking to other people, whatever it might be, then of course you've got to kind of reciprocate. But sometimes, you know, what I've realized is not everybody wants to go on those kind of dates. Of course, there's something just more reserved for, what would I say? I mean, everybody's different in their own ways, don't get me wrong. But I've met people who from all different walks of life where, you know, it might not be their initial, guys, don't take it too serious. It's a good. Now, guys, besides the restaurant choice, because the only, I think I didn't mention that first initial date when you've done something fun, I would say once you got caught, that's my form of vetting as well. You know, that's an opportunity for you to know, like, if this is someone that you might be able to see on the second date. And that's why I wouldn't set the bar so high, because then if she was to accept the second one to see her a second time, of course, then, you know, I'd do something, of course, that you can afford and something you can do consistently as well. Even if you were to do that again the same week, could you afford to do it again the same week? That's a good way to judge what you should do and what you couldn't do, what you can do. You know, and I would say that's a great start, because, you know, all it takes is for her to kind of go on that meal, take pictures at the restaurant, and then the next day, she might not talk to you. She's on the next date with the next person, you know. So, you know, and also being able to handle that and seeing that and being able to handle it, because the reality is she's not your person. You know, everyone's person is out there. I'm pretty sure if she's constantly going from different guys to different guys on different dates, then, you know, it says a lot more about her than it does about you. So, of course, the young men that are tuning into this, I expect everyone that's tuning into this to kind of be aware, and obviously be loyal, of course, enough to not waste anybody's time and looking for something serious long term, because obviously that's how you build the rule. But of course, then, of course, you know, you've got to put your time and effort into something that's actually going to work. So I would say before you even decide to take somebody out on a date, just know that that person is serious. I don't want to go too into depth. I'm just speaking from my own experience. That how would you know someone's serious? I would say that person is honest and upfront. You know, you can pick up somebody's vibe by just asking them, knowing, you know, a little bit more about them, whether they're talking to other people, dating currently, their social media presence, all of that kind of stuff. You can kind of, whether she's posting thirst traps all the time or just with other people, she's been single for a very, very long time, doesn't, you've never seen her in a relationship, maybe. All of these kind of things, these are just things that might look like, okay, this person isn't looking for a relationship, or she is, but she's just not the person that might work with you. These are all things you need to ask yourself and see if it would work. And it is quite difficult, don't get me wrong, but of course, like, it shouldn't feel difficult when you're with that person that you believe is yours. So if you haven't already, like, comment, subscribe. You know, it was a short video today, but I just wanted to let you guys know that, you know, you got to do certain things and not do certain things to be able to be with somebody long term and make it work as a young man. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. It was short, punchy, whatever. Peace.